What's up, guys? Welcome back to I'm Outraged. We've made it. I am coming off a massive weekend where I did a ton of rookie drafts. So it's been good. I know I've chatted with some of you guys. You guys are in the middle of rookie drafts, and many of you are doing very well from everything we've talked about. You're ending up with all the players you want. We talked through a bunch of trades. So it's exciting. This is what we're looking for. Is football on the horizon? We hope so. But if nothing else, we are getting these rookie drafts out of the way. And it's funny because recently in a rookie draft that I'm in, everybody lost their minds. This draft was going on. It was the most trade-heavy draft I've ever been involved with in all of my years at Dynasty for whatever reason. Maybe it was the depth of the class. Maybe it was how people were posturing themselves for the season. Whatever it was, these trades were going off like crazy. And it was insane activity. And what was funny about it to me was we have these members that are messaging throughout the night during the day. I mean, it's a 12-team league. It's a 14-team league. And people are just corresponding all the time. And it made me think to myself how much times have changed. Because last night, I was trying to sleep. I don't get a lot of sleep as it is. I normally go to bed about 10 p.m. I fall asleep about 10 p.m. and I get up every day at 4 a.m. minimum. Some days it's at 3 a.m. and I have to set an alarm clock to it. And I know this sucks. Most people look at that like that's how early you get up to get on an airplane. Well, that's literally my everyday life. I get up that early to go work my day job. Because I don't make a living off of this. I do this because I have fun doing it, and I like doing stuff for you guys, the patrons, and I like working with people on Twitter, and I just have a general enthusiasm for it, so I do this. But what I don't enjoy is 1:30 in the morning, 4 different guys in my league are messaging each other. They're just texting back and forth in the league chat. We all use Sleeper now, so I hear that little raindrop tone right in the middle of the night. And I'm getting text messages from league mates, guys that are asking me if I want to make a trade. It's 1:32 in the morning, and I'm getting a text message from a guy in my league asking me if I'm interested in dealing some crap player for a 4th-round pick. Now, here's how much times have changed. Because back in the day, back in the 90s, when you had to get a hold of somebody, there was no cell phone necessarily at this time. So the only way to get a hold of somebody was on a landline, and you didn't dare call their house at 1:30 in the morning. You wouldn't have the balls to call someone's house at 1:30 in the morning. Because number one, you're not just waking them up at an inconvenient time. You're waking up the whole family because everybody's at the mercy of the phone going off. And number two, there was no way to silence a landline phone. What, are you going to take it off the hook? What if grandma falls and breaks her hip and has to call you and say, Nathan, I need you to get over here. I think I broke my hip. I don't know if she'd say it just like that, but how are you supposed to deal with an emergency? Or your neighbor calls, your house is on fire, something, anything. So you didn't take your phone off the hook. So people wouldn't dare call you at 1:30 in the morning. But now everybody just assumes that all the time your phone's always silenced. There's no inconvenient hour of the day. My dad, retired, my father, will shoot me a text at 12:30 at night. 12:30 at night. And he's lucky because typically I silence my phone. Typically I would. I just don't want to hear the notifications. I already get up early as it is. But I won't do the same to other people. I will not text anyone at 1 a.m., at 2 a.m., at 11:45 at night on a Wednesday. I just don't do it because I'm being courteous, because I lived through the 90s. I don't know if you silence your phone. Maybe you don't. But I don't want to be the guy that texts you at 12:46 asking if you were willing to part with Dion Lewis in a second for a guy so you can pick up your phone after you've been asleep for 2.5 hours and text me back and go, yeah, go ahead and fuck off. I mean, I don't understand. Why do people do this in the middle of the night? But this league, we've got guys that work nights, so I get it. But it's the craziest thing to me. It's like, hey, guys, it's 1:30 in the morning, and we got this intense chat going on. All I hear is bloop, 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 bloop. Just continues to go off. There's nothing that I can do about it, so I'm awake now. So I go and silence my phone, and I'm thinking about this all day. I'm just like, nobody Nobody back in the day would have done that. And people just assume that your phone is silenced. So the next time you're going to shoot a trade offer at 12:30 at night, maybe just hold that thing back a little bit. In fact, I was talking to a buddy at work. I won't even send a text message at 6 in the morning. Now, I'm already at work at 5 a.m., 5:30, but I won't send anybody a text at 6 in the morning because I don't know what time you get up. I don't know if you silence your phone. And I don't want to be the one that's responsible for waking you up 2 hours before you were going to get up. Or I don't know if you had a long night the night before. It's just common courtesy. People out here sending a text at 2 in the morning. Who the hell is up at 2 in the morning? I'm not. Well, I was last night. So I sent this message to my league. I said, guys, listen, we got to get this under control. We got insane amounts of trade talks going on at 2 a.m. I can't even get a trade talk during the season at 1 p.m. Clearly, I need to be on different hours. I mean, nocturnal or something. Maybe that's what this fantasy league has become. But the point is, you may or may not have lived through the 90s in the landline phone, but show a little goddamn courtesy to the people in your league instead of shooting a text message. Now, I should clarify, a direct text message is way worse than shooting a message into a league chat. I can turn my notifications off in the league chat, but I'm not going to turn my text messages off. So I take it as a personal attack if you text me at 1:30 in the morning. Don't do it. It's not courteous. I feel better. I feel good. I want to talk about my updated Superflex rankings. Listen, I've got a breakdown of all 36 guys. I plan to do all 36 today. I'm going to post my rankings below this video, below this podcast. So if you guys want to just read it, you can read it. If you want to listen to the analysis per player, you can do that as well. I want to do it both ways this week. Me and Matt Kelly have been going back and forth on a Superflex mock draft. It's a two-man mock draft. Matt Kelly thinks that it's two teams. I believe that we established that it was 12 different teams, but nonetheless, he loves the bit. He thinks it's hilarious. He continues to tell me that my team has too many quarterbacks and no running backs, and I continue to tell him, Matt, we're 12 different teams. You don't understand what's going on. He tells me I'm wrong, and we just go round and round and round. So eventually I give up because he will not, as you guys are well aware. So I want to go through these top 36 guys right now, Superflex rankings, and you guys can give me your feedback. What do you think? There's some definite changes from the way this once was. So I'm excited to kind of get into this right now. So let's start right off the top, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Now listen, there's been enough debate about this. I don't want to continue to go into it. We've talked about it to ad nauseum, okay? And I understand there's beliefs out there about punting quarterbacks to a sense in Superflex. I don't totally agree, but I certainly have plenty of players before I'm going to name a quarterback. But let's go into it right now. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, obviously, Andy Reid and this offense and all the running backs that have ever played for him in 21 years, there's plenty of evidence to glean from that. We've heard Graham Barfield talk about Clyde Edwards-Helaire as well to ad nauseum. Him, and we had Scott Barrett on the show. Both these guys said that he's going to blow up. Don't be on the wrong side of history. There are an infinite amount of analysts that are on the Clyde Edwards-Helaire side. He's not a bad player. He ended up in a perfect spot. Matt Kelly and I were on the phone actually just before this talking, and once again, he referred to Clyde Edwards as a system running back, that he fell into a system. I told Matt, I don't care. I want good fantasy players. I want fantasy points. And that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a guy that's playing for a coaching staff that had at least 12 running backs with 63 plus targets. Casey's always going to be in the red zone. You've got Mahomes plus all of his weapons, just like people used to say, oh, Clyde Edwards was only a product of Joe Burrow and all those weapons because defenses couldn't stop him. Well, guess what? Defenses can't stop Patrick Mahomes either. And all those weapons. Kelsey, Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman. They're not stopping those guys. What changed? So what? We're at the NFL level. Linebackers move faster. D-line move faster. Safeties move faster. Yeah, guess what? They still have to cover all these weapons. Patrick Mahomes chewed defenses up the past couple years. They just won a Super Bowl. Are you kidding me? They're coming off a Super Bowl and they take this guy in the first round when they only have 5 draft picks. The con to him right now is Damian Williams, who's an unrestricted free agent in 2021. He's got 1 year left. So to some extent, there will be a bit of a timeshare, but we believe that Clyde Edwards will take this backfield over and at minimum be the third down back pass catcher right off the bat. So it gives him incredible value. So I've got him at 101. I don't have any dispute with somebody that has Jonathan Taylor at 101. That's fine. I've heard the argument. I have Jonathan Taylor at 102. So elite college rusher, obviously, goes to the Colts that have an incredible offensive line. He's running behind Quentin Nelson. We've talked about this a ton. The Colts were number 5 in rush attempts in 2019. So there was a clear emphasis on running the ball with Marlon Mack previously. They invested the draft capital into Jonathan Taylor. I personally don't believe that they plan on Jonathan Taylor ever landing there. If you listen to my podcast that touched on this, they watched 3 other teams, Detroit, Miami, New England. Detroit's the only team that took a running back. I think they believe that any of those teams were in the market for one. They did not trade up to get in front of any of them. As soon as Miami didn't take a running back, boom, they trade up, they take Jonathan Taylor. I don't think they expected him to be there, but we know that Taylor can do it. And people have cited the college target share. Yes, Taylor and Clyde Edwards actually were pretty close in terms of target share, namely because LSU threw the ball a lot. And let's not forget that Clyde Edwards had 55 receptions. That's the most in 20 years in the SEC. But we love Jonathan Taylor. Look, he's going to be an incredible runner behind this offensive line. Matt Kelly seems to believe that his floor is Nick Chubb in 2019. If that's his floor, that's incredible because Nick Chubb was top 10 without really having a vast amount of receiving upside. So we hope that in the future, Jonathan Taylor turns into more of a pass catcher, which we don't think that his passing acumen is great. Evan Silva has noted this as well. But we hope it's something he can build on. We've seen running backs do it. People didn't think Melvin Gordon was going to be much of a pass catcher. People certainly didn't think Leonard Fournette was going to do what he's doing. So there's plenty of evidence to prove that teams can evolve and utilize these backs that have an ability to do it in the first place. And we know Jonathan Taylor can catch the ball. It's just never been a primary skill set for him. The downside of playing in Indy, they love a third down back. We know that Nyheim Hines will be in the mix. It doesn't matter what anybody tells you. Marlon Mack went there and they said he wouldn't be either, and he still was. Marlon Mack's also a very capable running back, but he's an unrestricted free agent in 2021. So at least in 2020, you can expect a split workload between he and Jonathan Taylor. But beyond that, in 2021, Nyheim Hines is still there. But hopefully at that point, we see Jonathan Taylor start to take over a little more of the passing game role. And from that point on, we can see this true top 5 potential runner. Again, a team that was in the red zone a lot already. And now they add Phillip Rivers at quarterback. So things are looking a lot better there for Jonathan Taylor. Number 3, J.K. Dobbins. Big fan of J.K. Dobbins. Playing with Lamar Jackson is a massive boost to everybody around him. Harbaugh loves to target the running back, so that's a big thing. And we know for some people they're going to cite the fact that pass attempts were down to running backs in 2019, but that's because the quarterback rush attempts were up so much. So I think that if this is a team that balances out more, we're going to see the true J.K. Dobbins. But we know Dobbins can do everything. We know that he can shoulder a massive workload as a runner. We watched him do it in 2019, 3 consecutive games. I think it was, again, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Penn State. He had over 32 rush attempts in each of those 3 games. So he can literally do everything. We know his athleticism is there. The expectation is that he was an elite athlete. We didn't necessarily see it in the full scale, but I'm a huge fan of Dobbins in this offense. Baltimore, the coaching staff has always produced runners. Mark Ingram has been great there. You're playing with a mobile quarterback. So there's just huge advantages to playing in Baltimore. It's not really a question. Dobbins has been the running back 3 for a majority of this process. He was probably the running back 2 for a lot of people for a while before Clyde Edwards went to KC. Okay, this is where I differ from a lot of people. I'm going Joe Burrow here. I'm going Joe Burrow before I hit any of these other 2 running backs. And there's certainly a reason for this. You know, Joe Burrow was an elite college producer. You can give credit to Clyde Edwards for Burrow. You can give Justin Jefferson credit for Joe Burrow. But Joe Burrow was the one out there making those passes. He was the one out there making those reads against SEC defenses. So there's just nothing you can say. Sure, there were weapons, but he was absolutely incredible. The best statistical season we've ever seen from a college quarterback. He goes to the Bengals. They upgrade the O-line. They get the left tackle, Jonah Williams, back this year. They've got, Mixon, Gio, AJ Green, Boyd, Ross. They drafted Higgins, first pick in the second round. So lots and lots and lots of weapons that they've invested around him. You know, you look at the downside, AJ Green and John Ross are potentially gone after this year, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. You still have Tyler Boyd out of the slot. You have T. Higgins on the outside. You know, you're still going to have Joe Mixon, who we believe is an elite running back that finally gets a solid quarterback, young quarterback that he's going to be tethered to. This offensive line is getting bolstered. So we really believe that Joe Burrow is a can't-miss guy. And I believe that investing in quarterback, a quarterback at least of his upside, is a no-brainer. And you guys know the value of quarterbacks in Superflex. People act like you can push quarterback, but the fact of the matter is if you go to try to buy a quarterback, it's near impossible. And God forbid you have an injury or lack depth and you're throwing in Duke Johnson in place of literally any other quarterback, it just doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. So Joe Burrow's upside is so high, I have to take him. And honestly, this is where my run starts. Right after him, I'm taking Tua. Went to Miami. I love Tua. I love his upside. Again, Miami's offense was number 7 in pass attempts just last year. Devontae Parker, Mike Gesicki, they add Matt Breida to this offense. This offensive line has been upgraded. Brian Flores is building this team the right way. And they go and invest in another great quarterback. I think everybody loved Tua. If he didn't have the injury last season, I think that this would be a flip script. I think you might actually see Tua ranked above Joe Burrow. Now, Joe Burrow has sneaky rushing upside. That's rarely talked about. And that's something that we don't necessarily see from Tua. But Tua is just such a pinpoint accurate passer. With the future investments in this offense, I think that there's going to be a lot to expect from him going forward. But again, not a rusher. Miami's yet to truly put it together. This is a young team. This is a rebuild for them in a lot of ways. But future weapons should be coming. The expectation that a running back will be coming. The expectation that they will add wide receivers to this offense. I think all of this is coming in the future. So you're kind of getting ahead of the curve with Tua here. So I'm a huge fan of him in this spot. Quarterbacks just matter too much in a lot of senses. And again, here's a fact for you. When you look at the running back 6 through the running back 15, so we're talking about outside the top 5 running backs. Those running backs on average 16.75 fantasy points per game. 16.75. That's the RB6 to the RB15. These are the running backs that apparently we're trying to chase down and punt for the quarterbacks in the same range. Then you look at the quarterbacks that were QB6 through QB15. Those guys finished with 18.63 points. So they almost finished 2 full points per game more than the running backs in the same classification. So as much as people want the upside of the running back, it's not as high as the upside of the quarterback. I mean, a quarterback throwing a touchdown pass has much more high-level probability than a running back rushing for a touchdown. We see multiple games where quarterbacks are throwing 3, 4 touchdowns in a game. And then there's multiple games where running backs don't even score. I mean, look at Leonard Fournette, for Christ's sakes. He never gets the ball into the end zone. But what did you draft him for? His touchdown upside? You didn't think he was going to be a pass catcher. So I just think that there's a ton of value in these quarterbacks at this spot, and I think that you have to go with them here. And if you guys listen to my debate with Matt Kelly, you've heard us go back and forth so many times, and I wanted to go quarterback again here, but in this spot, I'm going DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift, to me, is the most talented of all the running backs in the group. I think he's the most complete 3-down back out of this entire group. You look at Detroit last year, they missed Stafford for almost half the year. And that's a big reason why people that are looking at 2019 stats in Detroit are missing a big picture. Because if we go back to 2018 and you look at Stafford, he targeted his running backs out of the backfield 142 times. Now, granted, some things have changed. In that situation, one primary back is removed from that group. We've got a different OC. So a lot of things have changed there. But we know that Stafford utilizes the running back. So we know that DeAndre Swift is a fantastic pass catcher. So that's a player that I'm a huge fan of. Now, going to Detroit raised a bunch of questions. Everybody's talked about this. I don't think Detroit was the best landing spot. The advantage of it is we believe that Patricia and Darrell Bevell may be out at the end of 2020, and I think we can only hope for that because this has been a very stagnant offense for the past couple years. And again, granted, Matt Stafford was hurt, but We've seen Darrell Bevell doesn't always target the running backs out of the backfield. In fact, he loves to target the third down back. We've seen running backs by committee in Detroit a lot. Kerryon Johnson's a very capable running back, despite what other people might tell you. And they've still got pass catchers in this backfield. So the question is, how much upside are we really going to expect from DeAndre Swift playing in Detroit? And when you look at the top 10 producers at running back over the past 2 years, in 2019, 8 of 10 running backs had over 60 targets as pass catchers. So 8 of the top 10 running backs in fantasy had over 60 targets. And we do not expect DeAndre Swift to see over 60 targets while playing in Detroit, at least with Darrell Bevell, at least with Kerryon Johnson behind him. And then you look at 2018, 9 out of 10 had over 65 pass targets. So there's a big discrepancy in what his potential upside is in PPR. This is the whole argument between Nick Chubb and Austin Eckler. I've had this argument too many times. Eckler finished as the number 4 running back in PPR, while Nick Chubb finished as the running back 9, I believe. And the difference was 72 touches over the course of the season. Again, a target is worth 2.83 times more than a carry. The value is so high there. That's my whole argument for Clyde Edwards in the same case. So DeAndre Swift going to Detroit, I think in 2021 potentially is even better than this year, but you got to temper expectations a little bit. But I don't think this is an unfair position to put him at all. Now, here's where things change. I still love Cam Akers. Okay, I know people want to go to Herbert. I know that's the name that comes up a lot, but I'm gonna go Cam Akers here, because I just think that these running backs have a lot of value, and I question some of Justin Herbert's ability. But in any other draft class, if this was the draft class a year before, I'd probably have Herbert slightly ahead of this. But I'm going Cam Akers here because I think his year one opportunity is enormous. And granted, this is dynasty, but it's rare for these running backs to necessarily land in an offense where they take off right away, and he very well could. And we know the coaching staff has been up and down on Darrell Henderson. Malcolm Brown is never going to take over this backfield. We've seen it. Even a hobbled Todd Gurley got a lot of opportunity last year. So when I put a post up this week talking about Cam Akers, talking about his potential, looking at Todd Gurley's kind of lowest median season, and there's potential for Cam Akers to see over 230 touches as a rookie. It's totally possible. So I think when you look at the top 5 running backs in this group, I think that there's a very good chance that Cam Akers gets the most opportunity in year one. And I think you've heard other people say this as well. Then people have cited the fact that the Rams, they had an average O-line in 2019. It was better in 2018. It should be better in 2020 than it was in 19. They shored up a lot of positions, making trades with the Browns, draft picks. But then people have cited the fact that you look at the Rams targeting the running back, and it's scaled down year over year. In 2018 or in 2017, 18.9% of the targets went to running backs. Then in 2018, 16.5% of targets went to running backs. Then in 2019, 9.7% of targets went to running backs. So we see this number slowly scale back. But as I pointed out before, and if you go check out this article, Todd Gurley had a significant portion of the running back targets versus Malcolm Brown and Darrell Henderson, who both had less than half a target per game. So I like Cam Akers a lot in a creative offense. It feels like a no-brainer here. Those running backs are off the board, and this is the point where I'm going with Justin Herbert. Matt Kelly and I fought about this before. I'm sure he would go with somebody else here, but it just makes too much sense. Again, the difference between the 15th quarterback and the 15th running back is pretty significant. You guys can go check this out for yourselves. The Chargers were number 10 in pass attempts in 2019. So, he's stepping into an offense that's looking to throw the ball. It's built on the pass, certainly to the backfield, as we've seen over the past couple of years. He's got a great set of receivers around him. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler, Hunter Henry, at least in 2020. And again, go back to that target or that points per game difference between those late running backs and those late quarterbacks. And Justin Herbert just makes sense here, especially in Superflex. You need depth. Here's the deal, though. Tyrod Taylor is the current starter in front of him. I don't know what the over-under is that Justin Herbert's going to get on the field, but there's a very good chance that we still see Justin Herbert early in 2020. The real downside to what's going to happen here in in LA is the fact that there's going to be a bit of a change in this offense because Melvin Gordon's gone, which is fine. We've got Austin Eckler. We've got Justin Jackson. We've got other names. But Tyrod Taylor is the quarterback right now, and Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry are, unrestricted free agents in 2021. And that hurts. You're losing both of those guys. They may re-sign Keenan Allen. We don't know. Keenan Allen could go somewhere else. I don't know. Hunter Henry could go somewhere else as well. So these are two guys that could potentially not be in the picture in the future. And then we have to reshape completely what we're looking at. So those that are fans of him going forward because of the offense that's currently in place need to be made aware of the fact that things could certainly change in the future. After Justin Herbert, we are going to add CeeDee Lamb because, of course, why not CeeDee Lamb? Best receiver in the class, goes to Dallas. Dallas never expected this to happen. We didn't expect it to happen. Felt super redundant to Amari Cooper because they're both incredible talents on the outside. Dallas was number 10 in pass attempts last year. And when you look at Cobb is gone, Witten is gone, and Michael Gallup is up in the air for what his true target share is. But if you take those three players, put them together, that's 279 pass attempts that you've essentially created. What will Michael Gallup's role be? Well, he might only see 70 targets next year. Who knows? But that certainly means that CeeDee Lamb could absolutely see 100 targets or more as a rookie. So I think he has instantaneous value playing in this Dallas offense. He's playing opposite Amari Cooper. And as I've mentioned before, it's incredibly hard for a quarterback to prop up two wide receiver ones. It's very rare to have two top 15 wide receivers, let alone two wide receiver ones, meaning two guys inside the top 12. Now, year over year, we see it from every team. We see it from a team every year. There's at least one team in the NFL that manages to put two players in the top 15. And it wasn't Dallas last year. Maybe it is in the future, but we've seen, in 2018, we saw Juju and Antonio Brown, Diggs and Thielen. 2017, we saw Marvin Jones and Golden Tate. 2016, we saw Jordy Nelson and Devontae Adams. So it's happened. These guys have done it, but it's a rarity, and you have to have a quarterback that's capable of doing it. So in this case, Dak Prescott certainly could do it, but I think the belief amongst a lot of people now is, what if Amari Cooper is gone in a year or two? That seems like a realistic proposition for a team that's had salary cap concerns over the past year or so. And this is also a team, when we talk about propping up two wide receivers, that has one of the biggest commitments to the running back in the NFL. Look, they paid Zeke a ton of money, and he's been a ball carrier with massive volume ever since he got in the league. So there's high probability that persists as well. So love CeeDee Lamb, love the talent. You can't pass on him. He's too good. Right after him, Keyshawn Vaughn. Going back to the running back position, I just got him in a rookie draft at 112, I think. One of the owners was going to take him at 108. I was fortunate enough to get him there. You look at an evolving offense in Tampa Bay. They add Brady. They bring in Gronk. Lots of changes there. But when you look at the target share out of the backfield between Peyton Barber, Ronald Jones, and Dare, you see 110 targets. Now, where does Keyshawn Vaughn slot into this? Well, he's certainly going to be in front of Dare, we believe, as the pass catcher to start. And we know Ronald Jones can't catch passes. He knows he can't catch passes. So there's a great chance that Keyshawn Vaughn immediately steps into the pass catching role. And we love Keyshawn Vaughn as a runner in this offense. So there's a very good chance right away that Keyshawn Vaughn ends up the guy in Tampa Bay. And you have to love that in that offense. We know that Tom Brady has a propensity to target his running back. That's just built into him. That's just not a New England thing. They have always supplemented the pass, or they've always supplemented the run with the pass out of the backfield. Short hitters to Edelman, James White out of the backfield, Shane Vereen out of the backfield. So we know that Keyshawn Vaughn is going to be a big player out of the backfield for them. He has third-round draft capital. We love that. Had good 40-yard dash speed, has all the college production that's necessary. So big fan of him. He's my next running back off the board. And then this becomes the huge run on wide receivers. I'm going to blast through a couple of these guys. Number 2 wide receiver for me, Jalen Reagor. Plus athlete, very good athlete. Rationalized away his final year of production at TCU, one of the most inaccurate quarterbacks in college football. Look at the Philadelphia situation. D-Jax is getting old. Alshon is clearly washed. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside did not fire his first year. This is a team that runs a lot of two tight end formations. They've got Dallas Goedert. You've got Zach Ertz. You've got Carson Wentz here. So there's a lot of pieces in place, and the GM loves Jalen Reagor. They took Jalen Reagor very highly in the first round, and they know the player they got. They've got a player with incredible acceleration, explosiveness. So there should be a ton of favoritism for Jalen Reagor. He should be the second receiver off the board for most of you guys if you can get him. Big upside in Philadelphia. They need an outside wide receiver, and they certainly got a stud in Jalen Reagor. Right after him, Justin Jefferson. I've always battled back and forth with these two guys. Justin Jefferson primarily played the slot last year at LSU. I believe 98.2% of his snaps came from in the slot. And that was a big majority of his catches. I think 103 of his catches came from in the slot. So clearly that's where he plays. A lot of people said he can't play outside. That's not what we've heard as an indicator from Minnesota. I think they believe he thinks he could play everywhere, and they'd like to see him play everywhere. Adam Thielen, the only remaining piece there after Stephon Diggs was traded away. He'll be 30 years old. Gary Kubiak, who's the new OC, when you look at his career, when you focus on pass attempts for his career, he averages about number 16 in the NFL in pass attempts as a team. And his wide receiver one averages about 135 targets per season, and that's on average over the 12 years with him as an OC. So as Adam Thielen starts to dwindle down or perhaps moves into the slot, or depending on what role they foresee for Justin Jefferson, as long as Gary Kubiak's in place, there's a great chance that Jefferson maintains a pretty high floor. I mean, we could see him around 120 targets, 130 targets, and that would be very exciting for a player that we know has a lot of the skill set that we look for in a wide receiver in fantasy football. And then next right here, this is a tough one for me. I'm putting him here because I'm betting on the talent. I am not betting on the situation. Jerry Jeudy from Alabama goes to Denver. This made me sick. This was literally, of all the skill position players, this was the worst landing spot for me of any of them. But Jerry Jeudy is a great separator. We've seen it all the way through college, but he ends up in a situation in Denver with a stacked wide receiver group and, a quarterback with sort of unknown variable skill set. Look, he ends up on a team that's got Cortland Sutton, Fant, KJ Hamler, Alberto, 3 running backs, Drew Lock, we don't know anything about. This is a team that ranked number 27 in pass attempts last year. So it really makes you question where his target share is going to come from. So unless you believe that they're going to move on from Cortland Sutton, that necessarily means that you have to question what the true upside of Jerry Jeudy is in fantasy football. That's not a negative, guys. It's not a negative to ask, what is Jerry Jeudy in the fantasy football world? It's not a negative. We just know that this group is too crowded. Where do these targets come from? I'm concerned that CeeDee Lamb might not end up a top 15 guy necessarily because he's playing with just Amari Cooper. But we're talking about a shitload of pass catchers that he's playing with in Denver, a quarterback that has tons of question marks, and an offense that didn't really commit to the pass the year prior, but obviously they've invested in the weapons. So I just don't know. I mean, to be fair, we don't know what Judy's upside is, but we know the talent is there. Continue this run. Denzel Mims, you've got to love where he landed. The guy was an incredible athlete. The guy was a standout, if not the best, at the Senior Bowl, as Matt Kelly, again, has talked about in the past. Sam Darnold is projected to take a step forward in this offense. There is 0 target competition for Denzel Mims. Quincy Enunwa is out for the year. His only target competition is Jamison Crowder. There's literally nobody else. Robbie Anderson left in free agency. So Denzel Mims, of all the wide receivers, could step into the biggest year one volume. And I don't think that's crazy whatsoever to think. I mean, he's got second round draft capital. He's an explosive athlete. There's no target competition. So he pairs himself with a young Sam Darnold. So there could be a lot of upside to this for a long time to come. So it's not really a question here. I think you have to go Denzel Mims. After him, I'm going to my guy that I've been banging the table for, Michael Pittman. I love Michael Pittman. Again, another Senior Bowl guy, another guy that was a 4-year player in college. and just a huge fan of the potential that he's stepping into in the future. 2020 is a year that might be a little bit up in the air. I think you might have more of your average target share for a rookie wide receiver, but in 2021, I think Michael Pittman really takes off. T.Y. Hilton is going to be, I believe, 32 years old at the end of this next season. His contract is up in 2020. They took Michael Pittman at 202. They took him before Jonathan Taylor. He was the second wide receiver off the board on day 2. The Colts had all night to trade that pick, to think about that pick, to do literally anything else with that pick but take Michael Pittman, and they still took Michael Pittman. I've talked about the fact that in 2018, back in college as a junior, he played that stretch wide receiver role with injuries, 18.5 yards per reception. Then in 2019, he played more of that possession receiver role, 101 receptions. So I think he can play all facets of the field, and at least next year with Phillip Rivers, the guy that loves to target big wide receivers, Michael Pittman is going to fit in very well with him. And we don't know what the future is, but this is a team that bolstered the O-line. They've been working on the outside receivers. They've got Paris Campbell also. They've invested in the run game. And again, I think that what Indianapolis might be doing is trying to keep Phillip Rivers around as long as they possibly can and make this a prime veteran destination potentially, or go all in with the chips and go after one of these big quarterbacks in the future. So things can change very quickly, but Michael Pittman has the talent, even though he's a senior, to land in such a great spot with such a great O-line. I'm a huge fan of his situation, so I'm buying Michael Pittman where I can, and thus far, I have not been able to get him whatsoever. Another wide receiver here, Henry Ruggs. You got to love him, man. Oakland emphasized the speed in this draft clearly when you look at all the players that they took. Derek Carr was top 3 in target accuracy in 2019. I know that seems shocking to most people. And Henry Ruggs had an incredibly high target rate with Tua when he was on the field with him, especially on deep routes. So this was a guy that was very explosive, found himself open a lot. And in Oakland, there were really no previous deep options. I mean, so they went and invested in this Oakland offense heavily with a guy that has some speed, because this was an Oakland team that ranked number 25 in deep pass attempts in 2019. So they're clearly trying to unlock that. As Ryan Lopes has alluded to, he put a stat out that talked about Gruden's wide receiver 1 over the course of his career and typically averages about 135 targets per season. So a lot of people might be sleeping on Henry Ruggs, thinking he's more one-dimensional. I think they believe they got a Tyreek Hill level player. I think tape analysts believe that Henry Ruggs is a much more versatile wide receiver than just a stretch X speed wide receiver. And we're going to find out. Maybe he falls somewhere between a Tyreek Hill and a Deshaun Jackson. And that could be tantalizing for fantasy football. So I think for most owners, if you're getting him in the spot where I've got him slated right here, you're probably pretty happy about this. This is where I think some of these wide receivers tend to have a few more warts, but I'm going T. Higgins right here. Second round pick, first wide receiver taken in the second round. No-brainer, tied to Joe Burrow for a massive amount of his career. A.J. Green's contract is up in 2020, as I've said. John Ross's contract is up in 2020. The Bengals declined his fifth-year option. T. Higgins had a 96th percentile breakout age, played at Clemson, played against tough competition, showed out on the biggest stage when he was called upon. This is just a very good prospect, very clean prospect. So I'm not surprised that the Bengals took him this high. I think they see a guy that's a winner on the field, and they believe that he's going to be the long-term answer on the outside. And as Scott Barrett has mentioned on multiple podcasts, speed is overrated at the wide receiver position. Go look at a lot of these guys: Keenan Allen, Jarvis Landry. I mean, speed does not dictate the talent of a wide receiver. It certainly helps, but sleeping on T. Higgins because the athleticism wasn't necessarily where we wanted it to be has slightly been trumped by the fact that the guys went all in on him. I mean, he was the earliest pick on day 2, so you've got to love that. Next guy here is going to be Bryan Edwards, of course, black box prospect. Athletically, we don't know what it is. Third highest breakout finder rating amongst the whole class of 51.5. That is lunar. That is incredibly high. Elite level of competition score, 100th percentile breakout age. We've talked about Bryan Edwards a ton. The downside to Bryan Edwards is he's playing with Henry Ruggs, who could be the wide receiver one in that offense, unless you're going to spin yourself a story and say that he's not. I mean, Ruggs was the first wide receiver taken in the draft. We talked about John Gruden targeted as wide receiver one at least 132 and a half times per season. Tyrell Williams is still in the mix and could suck up some targets. Lynn Bowden is there. Josh Jacobs is there. So a lot of question marks outside of whoever's the wide receiver one in this group. After him, another wide receiver, of course, Laviska Shenault. Why not? Non-redundant asset to DJ Chark. Jacksonville was number 12 in pass attempts per game in 2019. Shenault is highly dynamic. He is a massive guy. And this is the type of guy that you're going to see move around the offense a lot. He was a guy that had 42 rush attempts at Colorado. They take him in the second round. I think they see him as more of a move piece, a guy that they can put on the outside, a guy that can take carries out of the backfield, a guy that can drop into the slot. So there's a lot to like of him. He also plays on the opposite side of an alpha wide receiver in Chark, who averaged 8 targets per game. So I'm just curious what his role is in the future with Dede Westbrook, who is going to be in the slot pretty much full time in this offense. But again, Jacksonville was number 12 in pass attempts. A lot of that probably has to do with the fact that Leonard Fournette was top in targets at the running back position, had over 100 targets. So a lot of that was built into that, but Gardner Minshew was a lot better than given credit for, and I think that Jacksonville truly believes they got a special player in Shenault, and we know he's incredibly dynamic, so he'll be an exciting guy, and that's why I have him at the back end of the wide receivers. And then my last wide receiver of this run is Brandon Ayuk, which is surprising because he was a first-round pick to San Francisco. He's a great athlete. Kyle Shanahan wants to put playmakers on the field. He's talked about almost a basketball mentality, put the ball in his hands and let them break a guy off yards after the catch. And I think that's what they're trying to do here. He's the last of the wide receivers that I'm chasing because that's kind of that last guy. He's got great draft capital, ended up in a funky spot in San Francisco because San Francisco ranked number 29 in pass attempts, which wasn't good. And they're going to have an immense target squeeze when you look at George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Jalen Hurts is expected to be back, Raheem Mostert out of the backfield. And of course, my biggest thing with Brandon Ayuk is he was a JUCO transfer. And I've never been a huge fan of these guys, but of course, we got guys like Tyreek Hill that were a hit. You've got guys like TJ Hushmanzada that were a hit. Marquise Brown is a guy recently that was a JUCO transfer. So sometimes I struggle trying to decide whether I love or hate these guys, but you can't sleep on the fact that he's got first-round draft capital. But I just do truly prefer all these other guys to him. And again, that partly is because of how this San Francisco offense is going forward. And I actually think that Deebo Samuel is the wide receiver to own still in this offense, despite the addition of Ayuk. And I think Ayuk was more of a fuck you to Dante Pettis, who's probably going to be gone sooner rather than later. Right here is where I'm selecting Jalen Hurts because this is about the time where his value is higher than the players that I have behind him. And, he's a Konami code quarterback. We've talked about this phrase before. Standout passer in 2019 at Oklahoma, 32 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He's a great rusher too, and that's what makes him that Konami code. We know that he's very versatile. Went to a great organization in Philadelphia, but the question is he ever going to get on the field? Carson Wentz has been a solid starter. Of course, he's been injured, but he is signed all the way to 2025. So that is a long time from now, even though Jalen Hurts has second-round draft capital. And as I talked to Matt Kelly about on our last podcast, maybe Jalen Hurts is more of a player they want to develop and then trade. I mean, we've seen this in the past where maybe Carson Wentz is the player they're going to trade. So sooner rather than later, we may see Jalen Hurts gain some value, whether it's Wentz that's gone, which seems unlikely, or it's himself that gets traded. But we should really sit back and wait to find out what happens. And I think we're going to have plenty of time to do it based on the way things look right now. I'm taking A.J. Dillon here. Other people have other running backs. I'm taking A.J. Dillon. He was a second-round running back out of Boston College, size, speed freak. Aaron Jones is an unrestricted free agent at the end of 2020, so he'll be gone in 2021, we believe, because the Packers are up against the cap. GM Brian Gutekunst talked about the fact that he loves A.J. Dillon's pass-catching upside. That's not something that we necessarily got to see from A.J. Dillon at Boston College. And I know this has been used as a dagger against him, but a lot of people are unaware of the fact that Boston College, Their top wide receiver from 2017, 2018, and 2019 look like this. 2017, 36 catches for their number one wide receiver. 2018, 33 catches for their number one wide receiver. In 2019, 29 catches for their number one wide receiver. Think about that for a second. So it's no wonder that A.J. Dillon had no catches and 300 rush attempts in his first year as a primary runner in this backfield. It's not a surprise. So I'm not using it as a negative. This is just a team that can't throw the ball. They don't throw the ball. I wouldn't even want to go to a Boston College game. This is the worst sounding offense I've ever heard in my life. So I'm taking A.J. Dillon because whether I believe in him or not, I want the cuff to Aaron Jones, and I want the primary running back potentially in 2021 in Green Bay. Why wouldn't I? He's a tradable asset at that point. Some owner in your league is going to be banging down your door for him, so you want that guy on your roster. After him, I'm going Zach Moss. Came out of Utah, third-round pick. Pro Football Focus absolutely loved this guy. He got the draft capital that was requisite. Devin Singletary could not take the job over from Frank Gore, who was meat falling off the bone last year in Buffalo. The advantage for Zach Moss is he's playing with a mobile quarterback in Buffalo, and Buffalo ranked highly in rush attempts. And in 2019, 337 of those rushing attempts went to running backs out of the backfield. So there's a lot of volume there to be had. The question is, though, will there be a touch squeeze? Because Devin Singletary, despite the lack of athleticism, was pretty good last year. I think a lot of people assume that Zach Moss might fall into a 60-40 split with Devin Singletary. And I think that we believe that based on the signs and the trades that the Buffalo Bills have made, that they're going to try to go to a more balanced offense. I mean, you look at the wide receiver group, you've got, Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, John Brown, Dawson Knox. So I think there's a belief that Buffalo goes a little more balanced, and that would not surprise me, but Zach Moss is still a value there. So I'm taking him. After him, I'm taking Anthony McFarland out of Maryland, fourth-round pick. Not necessarily a huge fan of the draft capital, but you got to follow the tea leaves. They scaled back James Conner in 2020. That's what they're saying. And this is also a team that is once again up against the cap. They suppressed the value of Anthony McFarland because he had an ankle injury in 2019 in Maryland. But this is a guy with 4.44 speed. Pitt was number 20 in rush attempts last year, so they were still trying to run the ball. But I think you might even see a little more of the run this year as we sort out this backfield. But lots and lots of guys are in it currently. You have James Conner, you have Jalen Samuels, you have Benny Snell. All these guys got work last year. So I think there might be a running back touch squeeze. But I also think that there's also a chance that Pitt does get back to the pass more than they did before. Because when you look at 2018, they ranked number 1 overall. Then you look at 2019 and they're ranked number 24. Big reason for that, Antonio Brown's gone. Big Ben is hurt. So I think that the rushing does kick up a little bit as the passing goes up as well. And you get a little more of the positive game script going. But there's no way that they're going to stay at number 24 in pass attempts next season. And I think once they open that pass game up a little more, the run game should get a little more room to work. After Anthony McFarland, KJ Hamler. Look, he's got the long speed. He was productive at Penn State. He has the draft capital. They took him in the second round. He's an incredibly fast athlete. But again, Denver is so crowded. Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Noah Fant, Alberto, Melvin Gordon, Philip Lindsay, Royce Freeman. Good Lord. Where is KJ Hamler going to get any targets? I only really would want KJ Hamler in probably best ball dynasty leagues. I just don't, I don't see a role. I can hardly make sense of where the role is for Jerry Jeudy, aside from him leaping Cortland Sutton on the depth chart, which is totally possible. But then KJ Hamler is behind Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton still, and Noah Fant, who we expect to take a step forward. And again, Alberto, who has rapport with Drew Lock from playing back in college. So I don't see it. That's why even though he has second-round draft capital, I've got him way back here. After him, Antonio Gibson, he's being comped to CMC. He gets drafted in the third round, which was about where we expected him to get selected. He's got elite speed, big-time production on a small sample size at Memphis. His opportunity is probably a little higher in 2020 than in the future, only because I think that they address a lot of these positions of need, the tight end position, the wide receiver position in the future. And if Darius Geis is healthy, it's his backfield. I don't care what anybody tells you. Darius Geis is an elite talent. He's had injuries that have unfortunately gotten in the way, but every time that guy has been healthy and on the field, he's broken off a massive play. We know the talent is vast in Geis, and if he's healthy, that's his backfield. So no matter what, I like Antonio Gibson, but I have him this far back for a reason. Darius Geis basically needs to be launched off of this roster for him to really take over. He's got some pass catching ability out of the backfield for me as well, but I think there's just a lot of question marks with a new coaching staff here and the weapons that are here already. And I'm not even sure Dwayne Haskins is good. Is Dwayne Haskins good? I don't know if he's good. So there's just so many question marks, but drafting the talent makes sense. So this far down, you got to click the button on Antonio Gibson. This is where I'm taking Jordan Love. And I know that seems crazy because, again, we're talking about Superflex. So how the hell does he fall this far? I'm not a huge fan of Jordan Love out of Utah State, even though he was a first-round pick. But it's hard to believe that Green Bay took him this early just to sit him. You know, we've heard that he's probably going to get to the field sooner than we expected, which means that Aaron Rodgers is probably out the door eventually. The tape guys loved Jordan Love. I wasn't a huge fan of him, but he's got a big arm, and that's probably another reason why Green Bay fell in love with him. He's got very good arm talent. He's got the swagger. Fits what they're trying to do. Kind of fits that Aaron Rodgers mold. And he's behind Rodgers for the foreseeable future. And so that's why we have him down this far. And again, not a huge fan of him necessarily, but in Superflex, you have to respect the fact that he's a quarterback and you need to add him. And this is an incredible value at this point. But look, Aaron Jones is gone after this year. Devontae Adams is out after 2021. With A.J. Dillon coming into town, is there more an emphasis on the run rather than the pass? So a lot of question marks for Jordan Love. Other analysts probably have him a lot higher. I've got him way down here. After him, Lynn Bowden is the guy that I'm taking. Kind of that hybrid player out of Kentucky. Third-round pick, got the draft capital, super dynamic, can literally play every position on the field. Has played quarterback, played wide receiver, played running back, played on defense, but we know he's buried for touches. They've got Ruggs, they've got Edwards. They're more of the true wide receiver position. They've got Josh Jacobs, who is the clear running back out of this backfield. So what's the realistic opportunity for Lynn Bowden in an Oakland offense? I just don't know. I think that he's going to be another guy that's going to get a touch squeeze. I mean, I don't know that the volume is ever there for him necessarily because at a minimum, you've got Ruggs and Edwards who came in the same draft class. So these guys are all relatively on the same timeline. So it's going to be difficult outside of an injury for him to hurdle any one of these guys. And then again, you've got Josh Jacobs there. So it's just really muddy. I love Lynn Bowden, but I kind of hate the situation that he fell into. And I know a lot of other people hate it too. Van Jefferson's the next guy for me, second-round pick. I think that this is a value for Van Jefferson. This is a guy that's really been pushed to the side most of the draft process through the combine, and I tried to bang the drum for him. I'm a fan of him, but I've bumped him down this far just because I like a lot of the talent ahead of him, and you've got to question some of the things. His breakout age was late. He's almost 24 years old, but he produced while surrounded by a ton of talent at Ole Miss. He's a very good route runner, and I think that's a big reason why teams really loved him, and that's why the Rams took him early. Brandon Cooks is gone. Cooper Kupp is an unrestricted free agent in 2021. So there's a lot of reasons to believe that Van Jefferson could have a role going forward, and he probably should be higher than this. And I'm questioning myself right now why he is where he is because I feel like I should have bumped him higher. I'm still really in love with him, but I put him down here just because I think his upside could be a little capped. But again, Cooper Kupp was not a great athlete, and he found incredible viability as a slot wide receiver with the Rams. So maybe we get the same from Van Jefferson after Kupp is gone. After him, Darrington Evans from Appalachian State goes to Tennessee. Plus athlete with back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. Derrick Henry is on a one-year deal. If he gets hurt, Darrington Evans could step in right away and get some opportunities. This was a team that was top 10 in rush attempts last season. Dion Lewis is gone. So Darrington is the primary backup running back right off the bat. And then you look at sort of the limited college production receiving work, which kind of is the up and down of this play because we know Derrick Henry is not a pass catcher. So we hope that that's what Darrington Evans will do. He's buried behind Derrick Henry, at least in 2020, but there's a lot of hype to believe that in 2021, he could be the guy. Not necessarily the hammer that Derrick Henry is, so it would be a big change in philosophy from Tennessee to go away from that. I think a lot of people projected A.J. Dillon to land in this spot, which would have made a lot of sense based on what they want to do, but Darrington Evans did, and I'm a big fan of him, so I think this is a super value spot to get him. After him, another running back, Joshua Kelly from UCLA, 4th-round draft capital, good athlete, standout at UCLA the past 2 seasons. The Chargers' backfield is pretty wide open, just Austin Eckler. I know Justin Jackson will be in there for the mix. You look at Joshua Kelly, 33.2%, 77th percentile college dominator, good running back, good athlete. The Chargers are one of those teams that could balance out sort of that top-end rush attempts. We could see those drop a little bit for the pass attempts to go up. There's a change at quarterback initially with Tyrod Taylor. You've got Herbert behind him, so there's going to be a lot of changes over time. But Joshua Kelly's got the juice. He's got the relatively requisite draft capital, so that's a guy that you want to stash for sure, and he should be slipping a little bit in most drafts. After him, little run on wide receivers here. Chase Claypool, 2nd-round pick. You're probably like, why the hell is Chase Claypool at number 34? I just not a big fan of him coming out of college. He's a great athlete. Juju is gone, most likely at the end of 2020. Pitt has been very good at nailing the wide receiver draft picks, so we give them a lot of credit for this. It's baked in. Big Ben's getting older, though. Competition for targets is a lot stronger right now in Pittsburgh. You've got Deontay Johnson. You've got James Washington. We're still also not sure if Chase Claypool wouldn't be a better tight end than wide receiver. And I guess we're going to find out because this is similar to what happened when Darren Waller came in the league and they later tried to convert him. Good athlete, big player. I just don't know based on what we saw out of college if he's going to be a stud in the pros, but I'd love to be proven wrong. After him, Devin Duvernay out of Texas, 3rd-round pick. Man, goes to the Baltimore, this Baltimore offense, it's loaded. I mean, they've got weapons all over the place. Duvernay has incredible speed, 4.39, had 106 catches at Texas this last year, has the draft capital, playing with Lamar Jackson, who made Marquise Brown look fantastic in his opportunities. Marquise Brown had some of the most ridiculous touchdown stats you've ever heard. I think he had 7 touchdowns of longer than 31 yards each. I got to look that one up. His biggest hurdle, Miles Boykin. I mean, a lot of people love Boykin. Boykin's a great athlete. I think they just wanted to surround Lamar Jackson with a lot of speed, which they're already doing. Mark Andrews has been a huge focal point of this offense. J.K. Dobbins is here. Mark Ingram is a big part of this offense. So there's a lot of weapons here. I like Duvernay. I've got him down this far just because I think there's a lot of mouths to feed, and we know that Lamar Jackson is primarily a running quarterback, which is much more of an advantage for the running backs out of the backfield. So Duvernay, again, another one of these guys, probably a better best ball option than standard PPR dynasty leagues. After him, last wide receiver for my group, Tyler Johnson. I got to stick with Tyler Johnson, 5th-round pick, literally was not invited to any of the events that took place before the NFL draft. He broke every metric in the system, breakout age, college dominator, college target share. Lands in Tampa Bay, just a ridiculous situation, super loaded. We don't know what his athleticism is, another black box, prospect here. What's his target competition going to look like? We've got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Rob Gronkowski, O.J. Howard. You've got Keyshawn Vaughn out of the backfield, plus other runners. So it's really tough to tell what his target opportunity will be in the future. But you've got to love the fact that he checks literally every box that anybody cares about, with the question being athleticism. Then the last guy that I'm going to name here is going to be Adam Troutman out of Dayton, 3rd-round pick, standout at the Senior Bowl. Looks like Dallas Goedert per player profiler, 70 receptions as a senior, 95th percentile agility score, which is really impressive. Goes to the Saints. He was a small school guy. That was one of the downsides here, but Drew Brees could hang it up anytime. I mean, the guy's 41 and a half years old. How long can he play for? I mean, he's looked phenomenal even at this age, but how long can he truly play for? And then we look at the target competition. Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, Emmanuel Sanders. So a lot of question marks around Troutman, and I don't know that Troutman really hits his upside until Drew Brees is long gone. And by then, you got to ask yourself, do you really want Adam Troutman?